What it do, what it do, what it do, y'all. We are back for another episode of Libra Thoughts Podcast. I am Libra J. Hicks, coach Libra J. Hicks, and then we have Miss Angela M. Mitchell, bitch.
Hey.
And we are back. We're still continuing the conversation about bipolarism and ADHD, which is ADHD I've been diagnosed with late in life. And Angie was diagnosed with bipolarism late in life. And so the discussion has been around these mental health challenges that her and I have had to work through for many years and not know we had, and then rediscover who we were with these diagnoses and how that now plays a role in this life. So me and Angie were just literally talking about something that happens in the ADHD world, autism world, of a thing called masking. And I was asking Angie, was that something that takes place in the bipolarism world? Because I don't know. I don't know about her world, but I know in the world of ADHD, we have a tendency to mask. And what that means is, excuse me, y'all, what this means is that you will become whatever the environment is so that you can blend in. So you are not looked at as the oddball, the weird one, the awkward one. And in my life prior, I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD. And I did not realize growing up that I did a lot of masking. And when I thought back on my life, I did a lot of masking. I did a lot of what do I do to not be the weird one? Because I was always deemed the weird one, the awkward one.
Right.
I didn't really, I interacted with other kids, but I was totally cool with being in a corner by my damn self.
Right.
I
Right.
liked being out of the way and all that stuff. And when it came time, there were moments where I would do me, but people would look at me like, "Oh, well, what is she doing? What is that?" It didn't look like everybody else, and so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, mm,
I get it.
I got to do something else because I started to find myself alone because I didn't behave like everybody else.
Right.
I didn't behave, so it was
Right.
learning later in life what that was, and then reflecting back was a many thing.
Crazy. It is though. It
A many
is.
things. A many things. Tell me about that with you. I know it may not be masking, but tell me something similar in your world that
Yeah.
might be the same.
And like you said, with the whole kind of blending in, I guess I did kind of do the masking for a little while, and I think like hindsight, when I look back, maybe it was unconscious, right? The masking was
Mm,
kind of unconscious, you know what I mean? Because when in your mind, whether you have bipolar disorder or whether it's ADHD or whether it's none of the above, you still create a story in your mind about who you are, what you doing, what you want, and what other people are thinking and saying and doing and blah blah blah. And so a lot of times I think I would create those things in my mind, and so I'm like, damn, I got to be this, or be quiet about this, or adjust to this, just to make sure that I'm adapting to whatever it is that's going on around me. And I honestly can say, I guess I did really do that for a while, and I did that for a while with friends and with family. You know what I mean? And mostly, yeah, mostly with them because you don't I don't know. You are afraid of being looked at differently by them, mostly a lot.
that's
You know
it.
what I mean? A lot more for me, because I think it's about the important, who's most important to you, or who's most important. So I didn't really like your friends and stuff. You don't want them to be like, ooh, because you hear how they talk about other
Other
people,
people. Right.
and so you don't want to be that other person. So I guess really in that sense, yes, I guess that's what I was doing. So um and then when you think about that masking part, that adapting part, what are you adapting to? What environments are you adapting to? What situations, what friendships, what relationships are you adapting to? So I was adapting to some unhealthy bullshit, quite honestly, and which led, of course, to unhealthy habits.
Right.
Um, whether it was eating, whether it was mentally, whether it was drinking, whether it was drugs, and when I say drugs, y'all, I'm talking about weed. I talking about the devil's lettuce. I ain't talking about no crack or nothing like
Yeah,
that.
we're not doing that shit. None,
We
none
ain't
of that.
doing that. We
None of
ain't doing
that.
that.
None of that.
I mean, if this
Mm-mm.
is what you did, by all means, my hand is off to you. But what I'm talking about is the devil's lettuce over here. But um, but what I'm saying is just it leads. I think sometimes it can lead to abuse of those things because you're just trying to fit in. And you don't want to be the odd man out. You don't want to be the everybody in the group. You got your group of girls and everybody all doing the same shit, and you don't want to be at that time the odd person out. But I think it is masking, but it also takes like kind of changing the way you're thinking about these things
It is.
that get
I
you
had to revisit that and
yeah,
understand what I was doing because I didn't realize I was doing that. You when
yeah,
you get into survival mode, just so you cannot have conflict or any type of breakdown, you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. Like I didn't
mm-hmm,
know that's what I was doing. I learned
mm-hmm.
later. Like I literally sat back and was like, "Oh shit, this is
This is yeah, it's exactly what it
what I
is.
was
There's a
doing." I
name
was
for this. There's
yeah,
a
and
name.
it was quite an interesting thing to think back on because you really don't see how you're contributing to your own shit. Like I didn't realize that I
Mhm.
was participating in that. And you know what was deep after events and shit, I would go home and be extremely tired.
Exhausted. Yeah.
Because I am just out here functioning with people and I don't want to function this way, but this is how I have to function. Like it was a many things. And even
Mhm.
with like relationships, it also times that I felt like, okay, I don't want a mask today. I kind of want to just do me. It ran people off. Like people literally could not just accept Libra for at the base core of what she was. It was, and I look back on that. Like there were several situations where it was like, unless I was masking, we just couldn't rock. And if I
Mhm.
wasn't masking, then I was like, well, what's wrong with her? What you going
Mhm.
through? What is this?
Right.
That, and I had to really stop and be like, okay, wait. And this was prior to me getting the diagnosis, but I had to stop and be like, is it really me, or what the fuck is really
Right. What is
what
really
is
going
this?
on here? Right.
What is this?
And
And
why? Yeah.
that, and the
Yeah.
why for that, and the why for that. So it was not being able to recognize that I was doing that and change that behavior was a lot because it was really saying, you know what, I'm going to just be Libra
Mhm.
and whatever the fuck that is people
And
either
whatever that look like.
accept
Yeah.
it or they're not because
Yeah.
I'm not wired like everybody else. I'm not wired like everybody else.
Yeah. And it was exhausting because it took a whole hell of a lot more energy to pretend. So it's not exhausting when you're being like your natural you because you don't have it comes naturally. It doesn't take a lot of energy. But
Right.
when you got to sit around and deal with things that you don't want to deal with and people and situations and all of that, it's fucking exhausting.
It's hella exhausting.
So I just would rather, instead of being exhausted, I would just be like, you know what, I just won't be bothered.
that
And
that part.
subconsciously, not even subconsciously, it's not like I did it maliciously. I just will like fall off. But it's in that when you see like kind of where your relationships and friendships are with people. So was I always the initiator of the contact? You know what I mean? So was I masking for nothing? Masking for people who really didn't really care one way or the other, because why is it that if I stop contacting, we lose contact?
That part. That part.
So
That y'all, I got to be a mama real quick. Lyrics Jador, go upstairs and out of the way. Thank you. I
always.
had to be a mama real quick, y'all.
Hmm. Always. That's the beauty of the live, you know? It's the beauty of it.
I had to be a mama real quick.
That's
So let me
it.
ask you this. Did you find yourself I excuse me, when I got diagnosed, I started to reevaluate my circles. When did you reevaluate your circles? When you got your diagnosis, did you start looking at stuff immediately like
Mm, yeah, but what's crazy is I had already kind of fallen back from the circle prior to the diagnosis.
got it.
Um, yeah, because the circle I've had has been the people for the most part, with a few here and there drop in, drop out, but it's been the same people for the last 30, 40 years. You know what I mean? Women that I've known practically my entire life, if not, there's one or two from childhood, from the sandbox childhood, and of course through high school or neighborhood or whatever. But again, when I look back, I'm kind of like, well, it seems like, there really wasn't like a there was no real connection. I don't know. We were kind of connected in the bullshit.
That's
We were connected in the bullshit. And so even now, um, we're still distant and the connections really are gone
yeah.
because obviously they weren't where they were supposed to be because no, still, there's still to this moment, no one's saying, well, Dad, where you go? Where you go?
Mm,
So the fall off happened before the realization, before the diagnosis.
got
It
you.
did because I, had begun to feel out of place and just, what I mean, begun to feel like, damn, this can't be it. This can't be all. This is not what I want to do. This is not where I want to be. And so that part, led to me withdrawing and retreating. Right. And it led to like I was in a whole depressive period, but prior to the getting the diagnosis. But I had already kind of distanced myself from it, and it happened progressively. It didn't happen, immediate,
Right,
but
right.
it progressively happened over years. And as I sat back and as I sit back now, and I'm looking back, like, you know what, I can't even believe, I understand why I wasn't able to function properly, because I wasn't in the right environment. I just wasn't. So I couldn't get the diagnosis because I couldn't see the need for even going to the doctor to find out.
Got it.
I couldn't get it because I couldn't see it. I wasn't there yet. My
Right.
mind wasn't there yet. It wasn't right yet. And so that comes with the recognition. You know what I mean? With you really recognizing and acknowledging, like, it's something going on. You got to go see about this thing. And that, I think you make a conscious decision when you do things like that. When you pull back from stuff and it's uncomfortable as hell, but it's a conscious decision. And sometimes you got to rock by yourself.
Listen to me, girl. So when I had already, prior to my diagnosis, that I already scaled down my circle. Getting the diagnosis had me looking at what I had left even
Mm-hmm.
more,
Mm-hmm.
because it was really, now I have this diagnosis and this is who I am, and not
Right.
fully, but this is how my brain is wired. Not fully,
Right.
but this is how my brain is wired,
Right.
and I need women around me that are okay with this. Like, case in point, how I make friends is real basic in kindergarten. If I get in your space and I like how we vibe, I'm gonna ask you to be my friend. If
Mm-hmm.
you say no, I'm okay with that and we move on. I
Yeah.
can't tolerate the fake friends. Like, I'm not gonna be in your, and I realized I had a low tolerance for that once I understood my method on how I connect with people. It's a literal, do you want to be my friend? Because I want to be your friend. Are we friends or not? And if we are
Mm-hmm.
friends, then we'll build from there.
Yeah.
Then I was with other women, the women that were left, and it was more of one person, and you couldn't really be friends with this person because it's got to go through this person, or you're trying to make a connection. They think you're, the way you word stuff or the way you text is what's wrong with her, and she's weird, I'm just like, oh, you know what, fuck all this.
Right. Yeah, I don't have to be bothered with any of
I
this.
don't have to, but there was a point in time prior to that where I would be like, okay, well, what do I need to become so this situation can be stabilized? Now, when I got the diagnosis and I looked at what was left, and I'm thinking to myself, no, 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 it's still happening here. Because when I text these ladies, no one responds, or someone has an issue with the way that I text,
Mm-hmm.
or when we're in the with each other's presence, it's, well, Libra was the fat friend, and Libra was everything was just so
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
up to standard with everybody
Right.
else, and it was like,
Right.
hey, now let me chop this down even further.
Yeah.
So it really, at one point when I was working through the diagnosis, I would say to myself, I wonder if this hindered relationships, because there was a
Right.
point where I felt like my diagnosis, it explained my behavior, which could explain how some relationships did not flourish
Mm-hmm.
or died. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But now that I'm in this space, it's just like, no, I think I just got tired of acting like, whatever was necessary just so I could be in your presence.
Right. 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 That part.
That was crazy for me.
That part. And that's absolutely true though.
And how many women do? And how many women do that? And don't even realize that they are really conforming to a situation just so they're not lonely. Because I had to also own that I had moments in my life where I felt lonely because it was just like, damn, does anybody want to fuck with Libra?
Yep.
Not what Libra can become in that
Yep.
moment, not what, if I have a stimming moment, like my son has a lot of stimulation things, but I didn't realize some of the things that I was doing was stimulating
Right.
for me. So like
Right.
my son he likes to spin around and he likes the vibrations that come from his mouth. I like the vibrations that come from my mouth too. That stimulates the fuck out of me. There are certain things that I do in patterns that I just keep doing
Right.
because it works for me. But other people don't understand that.
Right.
Other people
Right.
don't see that. So you find yourself working really hard not to do those things in public so that you can have access to people. And how many of us really reduce ourselves down thinking that these are weird things
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just so that we can
Your
in our lives?
idiosyncrasies are considered weird,
Yes.
you know, and they're not. And I had and that's the part of that's the acceptance part. That's the acceptance part of accepting and loving who you are, where you're at, and shit. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
But that's of course becoming that's getting that that comes after the awareness and the acknowledgement, and then you just got to accept it. Like what, this is just what it is, and I don't have to be about. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
But
And
how long
it's
did it take you to get to
a
that space
long
though?
time.
That part.
It took me a long time. It took me many years to get well let me rephrase that. It took me many years to get to this level of that this level of that freedom, because there's so much freedom in that. But I've always been the I don't give a damn type of. I've always all when I say all, that's all from 10 to 5 to now. That's just always been. But deep down inside, deep down, I still, of course, we all want acceptance. We all want to be understood. But my thing was, if you didn't, then fuck you too. That's just what it was for me.
Yeah.
That's just what it was for me. So like I said, the masking for me could only happen for so long. Before I would just be like, I don't gotta be bothered with this at all. I don't have to conform or change who I am to fit who you want me to be.
That part.
And because I did it for a very long time.
Me
And that
too.
was even in my fam. That's why I was always like the black sheep, because I'm not conforming to that. No, I'm not saying that. Fuck what you saying. I'm saying this. You know what I mean? Fuck what you doing. I'm doing this. So that's just what it is. And so of course it affects your relationships and stuff like that, because you are deemed difficult. You know what I mean? If you don't, if it don't look like what the people want it to look like, because I have always been difficult, outspoken, too loud, ghetto,
Baby.
always want to fight, ready to pop off, all of those things. When in fact, no one looks at the why. They just look at the behavior.
That's
There's
it.
always a reason behind it, and so before I go through all of that, I just don't have to be bothered.
That part. That part. It took me a second too. I was working through shit before the diagnosis.
Right,
I was working
right.
through shit before the diagnosis, but getting it amplified me working through shit
Hmm.
and really like buckling down. And the minute I realize that I'm around people that's gonna have to or trying to force me to mask because they don't understand me, abort the mission. And you bitches can make it without me. Y'all don't need
Right.
me over there. I'm good. I had to be okay that who I am as an individual is not going to be okay with everybody else.
That's
Some
it.
people are going to just the frequencies is just not going to line.
That's it.
It's
That's
just on the line. It took a long time for me to get to that space though. It really did. It took a long time for me to be okay with people not wanting to be my friend because of who
right.
like I do shit and that's just what the fuck I am.
Right.
Either
And
you
everybody
in it
can't
or
drink this tea.
and
Everybody
that's
can't drink
it.
this tea. It's okay.
It really is.
Everybody can't drink this tea, and I am okay with that.
And I'm fine
I
with
don't
that.
want everybody drinking my damn tea. No way. It ain't for
Listen to me. That
you.
part. That part.
It
So
ain't for you.
it took a long time for me to get over here, but I'm glad that I did. Getting diagnosed
Right.
didn't change shit. Um, I kind of understand. Like I would ask my mom questions about how I was as a kid, and I can tell that there were some things that she was stumbling upon, but she did not want to bound me to it because it would have crippled me. Um,
Right.
and I do think it would have crippled me. Now that I'm in this space for a minute, I was just like, why didn't my mom say some shit? But I really got into a space where I'm like, you know what? It would have crippled me because it would have led her down to all of these paths to try to fix me. And
Hmm.
it would have slowed me up. You know what I'm saying? It would have slowed me up.
Listen, that is because I went to counseling as a child. My mother took
Did
me to,
you?
oh, yes, I had to go,
Okay.
and I hated it. When
Okay.
I tell
Okay.
you, I rebelled against all of it.
Really? Okay.
So I did. I rebelled against it. She would take me to. I remember, I used to have to go twice a week. I would have to go to these counseling sessions, and I'm sitting there like, what do y'all want? What do you want from me? Because I'm not talking. I don't want to talk. I don't want to share. It's not your fucking business. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? I would really rebel against that because I didn't want to be bothered. But of course, I'm a teenager. I'm a kid. I'm a, whatever. I don't want to talk to y'all about my feelings. I don't want to. So that, I think, I don't know what if it was necessarily a hindrance, but she definitely did try that.
Okay.
But I rebelled against that. That was not something because I didn't want to be looked at as different. I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with me. I don't need to talk to these people. You know what I mean? It's and I would in my mind it was if you would listen to me here, then you wouldn't have to take me here to hear it from these people. Just if you all you gotta do is ask me. If you ask me, I'll tell you. But I was never asked. So you know what I mean? So that's I think but you know what? A lot of times our mothers don't know how
Yeah,
to do that.
that is true.
They don't know how to do that. Not,
That,
not like 90% of the times because we often forget that shit. Our mothers, it was their first time being a mother too. So you know what I mean? They ain't know either. You know what I mean? And this stuff was not talked about when we were kids and when they were kids and when they're
in
you
fact,
know
in
what I
Black
mean?
families, mental health is
No.
kind of like you better not.
Or we gonna
No.
pray it away, or we just gonna take you to, and throw you at the throne and plead the blood of Jesus over this mental illness. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe and have faith in God's power.
Absolutely.
But I also know that you can't pray it away. You can't take it to, you
You
can't. You
can't
have
push
to
it under the
address
rug.
it.
You can't
You
act like the shit ain't
cannot. You
there. You
cannot.
can't just roll on with life and act like that shit
No.
ain't gonna show up.
Mm-mm,
It
mm-mm,
does. It
mm-mm. It's
does.
going to show up and it's going to manifest in other ways. It's
Yes.
going to manifest in your health. It's going to manifest in your physical health, all of that. In your relationship, it's going to manifest some damn where in
Yes, it
your
will.
body.
The stress
It
manifests
sure
for me
is.
in weight.
Yep.
And that
And,
weight
and there
I
it
was having
is.
weight issues as a kid,
Yep.
right? Because I'm in school struggling. When I say I'm in school struggling, like I was in school fighting
Hmm.
and
And
struggling
that
with
was
the
the
curriculum because
manifestation of that.
numbers would be jumbled up and I didn't even know how to explain that. And they just
Yeah.
thought it was just remedial as fuck. And so I spent a lot of time in remedial classes because I just didn't understand numbers. Words used to flip me out because if it wasn't a simple sentence, if it was one too many words that really didn't need to be there for the sentence, it was stressing me out. So it was
Hmm.
like, and then I had to hum a lot in class, so I got in trouble a lot for just chattering and humming and trying to sue because the days would just be so much. And then I'm fighting because people are like the weird girl. She's in the
Yeah.
corner by herself. She don't want to be bothered, And then and I got glasses on. I'm looking like a nerd. I'm looking like, And then they had to come fuck with me, and then I'm fighting now. Like I'm
Yep.
in there fighting
Yep.
my ass off because
Mhm.
I'm just not like everybody else, or even like
Yep.
with my clothes, it just wasn't the same as everybody else. So I was like from childhood, like literally like telling my parents, do buy these name brands because I won't fight. Buy this. Okay, now I need to go socialize with these people and let me see what they're doing. And that was like a hard job for me because
Mhm.
I'm literally trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to survive and not fight every fucking day and
Right.
I make friends because I'm tired of not being invited to sleepovers. I'm tired of not being invited to parties. How do I get into the mix? No one really
Right.
said to me, girl, you ain't got to do all that. Let me introduce you to some people or let me show you how you make friends. Or nonetheless, I'm literally
Right.
here winging it.
Yeah, and that's where it manifested at. And then of course then it lead to the eating and to the, when you like yesterday, you see these women all the time, that are strung out, or they out here, they out in the street, and I seen a couple of them just yesterday when I'm running to the store. And and of course, mental health issues are at the basis of that. But I often think, like, what triggered that?
Yeah.
What triggered that? What triggered this mental break for you, that you are now sitting in front of this store, with your hair all over the place and your clothes hanging off of you, and you not caring, and you looking for cigarettes, or you asking for change? What triggered that break with reality for you? You know what I mean? How what this That's the manifestation of the lack of knowledge, the manifestation of the lack of acceptance, the lack of awareness, is all of that. And it
It
manifests into that. And
it
and acknowledging and accepting and understanding and knowing
yeah.
that this is what you need.
It does, because I when I look back, my weight problems and stress and anxiety started in childhood. Like, I was stressed the fuck out as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
realize it, but I was stressed the fuck out. And the
Mm-hmm.
older I got, it just carried through. Like, so my
Yeah.
arguments got bigger. Like, they weren't little kid arguments no more. I'm literally taking your head off at this point. Like,
Yeah.
there's more aggression there, because now it's like no one hears me, so I gotta yell and scream and get in your face and do all of these big things to be heard
Mm-hmm.
or taken seriously, or just to remind you that I might be quiet, but you're not finna fuck with me. So it
Right.
was all of those
Right.
things that I'm dragging into adulthood. Now I'm in adulthood, and it's like, I'm gonna get you before you get me. So I'm just
Yeah.
everybody. When I say everybody, I was just with
Mm-hmm.
everybody, because I was just so tired of my voice being dimmed down, or if I
Yeah.
said and being corrected. Oh, well, that's not right. That's not what you meant. No, no, no. That is what I
Right. That's
meant.
absolutely what I meant.
I
Right.
meant that. Or, when you want more clarity and you're asking questions, well, you don't have to ask all that. You just want to know too much. You're just doing too much. Or just, it was, I had gotten so tired of hearing that. Or if
Right.
I made a move, it was always the wrong move. Why didn't you just do this? If you were going to do that, you could just done this. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
anything I'm going to do ever going to be good enough? Or is anybody going to ever be happy? Or is anybody going to ever celebrate me just for doing something more than I did yesterday? Can I ever get,
Right.
or I'm gonna have to
Right.
defend every move?
And that leads to what? Survival mode.
That's the survival shit.
That
And
leads
so
to
I'm
survival mode.
marrying
Yeah.
in survival mode. I'm having
Yeah.
kids in
In
survival
survival mode.
mode. I'm doing
Exactly.
all of this shit
And
in
trying to
survival
raise these
mode.
folks in
In
survival mode.
baby,
And from a place of not having or feeling, whether you have it or not, if you don't feel that you have that genuine support, that love, that trust, that safety, that security, you in survival mode. And so you don't know how to operate outside of that. It's like, how do you change that? You know,
that
Crazy.
was good. That was ain't that a, ain't
It is. It is. And then you get, years later, and then folks looking at you crazy, and your kids like, this happened. And you're looking back at it like, you know, and I'm actually going through some of that right now myself. And I'm like, listen, you know, I was in survival mode, and I can apologize and I can acknowledge and say, this is what that was, because now I know. I didn't know then. I know now. But of course, I didn't know then. But another thing I think in that survival mode and in this whole thing is we beat ourselves up to the point where we keep feeling like we have to continuously apologize and apologize and apologize.
no.
No, no. You know, this is what I did at that time. I apologize for hurting you at that time, but we are no longer there. I ain't
That
gonna
part.
keep saying it. Yeah, I didn't say it a couple few times. I ain't gonna keep doing it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
And you're not gonna hold
Um,
me hostage
and you
to
ain't gonna hold me hostage with it. Absolutely.
yeah. You're not gonna hold
And because what does it do? It manifests into other things, into other things. So
that part.
yeah.
That part.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
final words?
Final words. Just on the premise of the masking thing, that's a life that's filled with struggle. So if you feel like that you gotta like hide or mask who you are to be with who you with the wrong folks, man. You in the wrong company. You in the wrong company. But you have to be willing to acknowledge that with yourself first. So you acknowledge, be aware, accept it, and then take some action to do something about it. And that's it.
That part. My final word. Listen, child, if whatever you are, serve that. And either people gonna rock with it or not. I did it for a long time.